It was around midnight, and suddenly my heart started to race, and I was completely breathless. I was gasping for air. I couldn't breathe for a moment. And at that very moment, I was feeling that I'm going to die. Growing up, I always used to see my father tagging this particular term, which is very, stereotypical in me, to me, uh, that my mother was a patient of clinical depression. So she used to be called mad all the time. But to me, while growing up, I never felt that my mother was mad. The very distinct memory that I have is my mother getting a lot of trauma from her in-laws. And so this thing kind of lingered onto me for quite a long period of time. The overall atmosphere in which I was growing up, I wouldn't say it's not the worst, but obviously it's not the best atmosphere that a child should be in. These are the things that fuel my anxiety. These things in my life have truly scarred me for the rest of my life. It was back in the year 2016. It was around midnight, and suddenly my heart started to race, and I was completely breathless. I was gasping for air. I couldn't breathe for a moment. And at that very moment, I was feeling that I'm going to die, and I couldn't, that last breath I was trying to find. So from there, my mother took me to the emergency, and they told me that I had an anxiety attack. After coming from the emergency, I had a couple of panic attacks in the subsequent weeks. After that, 3 or 4 months passed by, and I didn't seek professional help because of the same stigma that our society has bound us into. After 2019, I had this massive panic attack. I started to hyperventilate. My hands, my legs, everything was getting crooked. I was having no sensation in my hand. So I was confined to hospital bed for 1 week. So after that, my mother took me to the psychiatrist. He told me that you have generalized anxiety disorder. But what was very noticeable was that in between this time, I used to frequently get triggered by the word suicide and schizophrenia. So whenever I used to hear this word or mad or schizophrenia, this used to fuel my anxiety. Obviously, it has affected my daily life in a lot of ways. In the initial days, I couldn't sleep. Whenever I used to, close my eyes, my head used to burn because of the medication. This thing kind of fueled my agoraphobia, also the fear of places, because the places where I had panic attacks, I associated with those places with my with the trigger, and I used to avoid those places, railway stations. So I wouldn't say that I've fully recovered, but obviously I've learned the ways to cope with my anxiety. Even now, when I have any sort of intrusive thoughts which may fill up my anxiety, I think to myself the ways that my psychologist taught me, that just let the thought pass. Don't try to stop the thought. So the one thing that life taught me from this particular journey is always be kind and generous. The ground rule that I set for myself is never ever to judge people by their face value. We don't know what they are going through. So yeah, that's a thing that I wanted God to change in me, and luckily God changed in this way.